everyone, James here from Barbechoo.com and welcome back to another Christmas cook on the channel. And today we are looking at the turkey. So we're actually going to do a bacon wrapped turkey crown today, and we're going to do a cranberry and bacon jam to go along with it. So we've actually teamed up with Thermapen for this video with their #JuicyBird campaign, and we're going to share a couple of tips on how to pack the most flavour into that bird and also to keep it nice and moist. So the first thing we need to do is prep the turkey crown itself. Turkey is traditionally quite a lean meat, especially that breast meat, and it's not known for having a lot of flavour, so we need to be careful how we prep it and how we cook it. We want to pack as much flavour in there as possible. Now, if you were traditionally roasting a chicken or a turkey, you would apply seasonings to the outside of the skin and then roast it to try and crisp that skin up. However, if you're slicing that, 9 times out of 10 the skin tends to get discarded. I know with my family a lot of them just take the skin off, which means they're just left with the plain breast meat. So the best way to combat that is then to put the flavouring underneath the skin. So you want to get your hands in there and peel that skin back. Now, we're not removing it completely, we are just teasing it back off the breast meat, still leaving it attached along that breastbone. That allows us to get the flavourings directly onto that meat. So the rub I'm using today is the Plowboys Yardbird rub. It's still by far my favourite poultry rub. So apply a nice liberal coat of that over the breast meat, and then you want to pull the skin back over the meat to encase it again. Again, the fat that's underneath that skin is going to render down and baste that meat a little bit, so you don't want to take it off completely, and it protects that meat from drying out. Now, if you're doing a whole bird, you can do the same thing. It might be a bit harder to pull that skin right the way back, but you can still tease your hand underneath it and get some seasoning down in underneath the skin. Now, as that turkey crown cooks, that skin's going to want to tighten up and pull back, so you might need to secure it in place. So I've just used 2 metal skewers, pull the skin into place and then push the skewers through, and that fixes it to the breast meat. So what about the outside of the skin? At the minute it's a pretty plain looking turkey crown. We're actually going to dress this with a bacon weave. So the bacon weave, one, looks pretty cool once it's cooked, but 2, that fat inside that streaky bacon will all render out, and it'll keep basting that bird as it cooks. So it's a little bit tricky to explain how to make a bacon weave in words, so just follow along the video. Really, you're just laying out strips of streaky bacon and then you're weaving them together so they form one sheet of bacon, one sheet of bacony goodness. And once your bacon weave's done, then you want to place that over the top of the turkey crown. It can be a little bit tricky to get it lifted, but if you fold it in half, you can lift it in one piece and then lay it on top and then just tease it down over that turkey crown. Now, don't panic if some of the strips of bacon fall out of place. As that cooks, it will all tighten up and hold itself together. So let's talk about barbecue setup then. Again, with any large cut of meat, we're doing this indirect. I'm using the Kamado Joe today, and I've it set up for around 170 to 180 degrees C. Now, another little tip to avoid your turkey crown drying out is to place a drip tray in there, which you want to do anyway to keep your barbecue clean. But if you add some boiling water into that, it's going to add some steam into that cook chamber, and that will help keep your bird moist, and it'll regulate your temperatures a little bit. So once you have your drip tray in place with the water in it, you want to place your turkey crown directly on top of that and then close the lid and let that cook. Now, the next part is the most important part of all, and that is knowing when that bird is cooked and ready to come off. Now, I was never a huge fan of turkey until I tasted one that was actually cooked right. And with any kind of poultry, people are always scared of undercooking it. When you're slicing into it at the dinner table and suddenly you hit a pink bit and everybody goes quiet and dinner's ruined. You don't want that, but unfortunately most people tend to go the opposite direction and they really overcook their turkey just to make sure it's cooked. And that's just as big a crime in my book. So that's where the Thermapen comes in. You can use that to take a reading of the temperature at the deepest part of that breast meat. As soon as that hits 74 degrees C, you know it's safe to eat. It's not undercooked, but it's not overcooked, so you can lift it off before it does get to that stage. Again, I've said it 101 times in this channel about how invaluable the Thermapen is for cooking, and especially on these sort of high pressure occasions when you really don't want to screw things up. The Thermapen will just take the guesswork out of it. It's making sure that you're not serving undercooked meat to your family, but it's also making sure it's not ruined and that bird is the best quality it can be. So the biggest tip I can give you is to not rely on timings, because all barbecues cook different. Every turkey will cook slightly different, so nobody can give you a per pound per hour measurement and get it exactly right. Using the Thermapen, doesn't matter how long you cook it for or what kind of barbecue you're cooking on. Even if you're doing it in the oven, I hope you're not doing it in the oven, but even if you are doing it in the oven, It'll still give you that reading and you'll get it right every single time. So Thermapen have been kind enough to give me a discount code for you guys if you don't already have a Thermapen, and it'll get you 20% off at checkout. You just enter the code Barbechoo-JB20, JB standing for Juicy Bird. But I'll pop it up on the screen here, and it'll also be in the link in the description box of this video. So if you haven't already got your Thermapen and you want it for Christmas Day, use that code before the 15th of December and that will ensure it's shipped to you before your big cook on Christmas Day. So as I said, we're aiming for that internal temperature of 74 degrees C. That's the perfect time to lift it off and rest it. Now it's going to need a rest for a good 30 to 40 minutes, so just double wrap it in foil. Make sure the rib cage of that crown doesn't puncture your foil, so put it into a tray just in case you have a leak. But lift that off, double wrap it in foil and set it to the side. And that should be enough time to let us prep the bacon cranberry jam that's going to go along with this. So I'm not a huge fan of the traditional cranberry sauce on my turkey, but if you add bacon into the mix, then I'm more than willing to consider it. So this is a nice mixture between savoury and sweet, and the nice saltiness of the crispy bacon added with the sweetness and the tartness of the cranberries. It really does make it a perfect accompaniment to with that turkey crown. So once your crown's off the barbecue, you want to get a skillet on there to preheat with a little bit of oil in it, and then the first thing we're going to do is fry off our bacon. So I've just cut up the streaky bacon into chunks. You put it in there and let it cook off. You want to render out all that fat until it goes nice and crispy and brown, and then lift that out and put it onto a paper towel to let it dry off a little. Leave the bacon fat in the skillet because we're going to go in then with your onions and cook them off in that bacon fat. Then once your onions are nice and translucent, you want to go in then with your sugar and start to caramelize those. So just mix that through until all the sugar's dissolved and it forms a caramel. Then it's time to go in with your liquids. So add in your beef stock, your apple cider vinegar, your maple syrup and your cranberry juice, and give that all a mix together. And finally then you want to add your bacon back into that mixture and also some dried cranberries. Stir it all together and then just let that simmer away until it thickens up. Now whilst this is a jam, you want to still leave that slightly saucy consistency to it, because as it cools down it will thicken. So don't cook it down in the pan until it is incredibly thick, because once you lift that off then it's just a little bit too thick to serve. So as you run your spoon through the pan, there should still be a little bit of liquid in there that fills back in, and that's going to be perfect. So you lift that off and put it into a food processor and blitz it up. Now you can blitz it as much as you like. If you like it really fine, leave it for a little bit longer in the food processor, or if you want it a little bit more rustic or chunky, just give it a quick blitz to cut those onions up a little bit, which is how I prefer it. I like a little bit of chunk and crunch in there as well. So all that's left to do then is carve up your turkey crown and serve it. It should be cooked to perfection inside. It'll still be nice and moist, but we've also packed flavour in there by getting that seasoning underneath the skin. So if you've never done Christmas dinner before and you're a little bit nervous about it, give this turkey crown recipe a go. It's quite a simple one to do. There's not any advanced techniques in there, and that being that smaller joint, it makes it a little bit easier to cook than a whole turkey. If you do cook it, make sure and use the hashtag JuicyBird for the Thermapen campaign. I'm sure those guys would love to see what you're cooking, and also remember and tag me in them as well. Love to see people getting out there and cooking their Christmas dinner for the first time. A huge thank you to Thermapen again for sponsoring this video. Remember that discount code, I'll pop it up on the screen again, but you don't want to miss out. Before the 15th of December, they'll have it to you before Christmas and you get 20% off. It is easily one of the best Christmas presents you will get this year. Again, they just take readings so fast, they're so well made, and I'm not sure I could cook without one now. If you want the recipe and method for today's video, it's actually over on the Thermapen blog, so I will leave a link in the description for that. You can go over and check that out, and that'll give you the full list of ingredients for the bacon jam, and also the full method for cooking that turkey crown. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.